We're back here on Comunidad del Valle with San Francisco Sheriff Ross Mirkarimi. Several programs throughout the jail system in San Francisco County that he's involved with. Thank you so much for coming down and joining us on the show. We're talking about veterans in the previous segment. Your thoughts, being a veteran yourself, your thoughts on the difficulty in making that first step through the door.
Oh, I'm absolutely delighted what your other guest had to say. I am a vet. I have honorable discharge from the U.S. Navy. My family are long-term vets. And as sheriff, I'm very concerned about how veterans, especially returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, from their service are now getting implicated in the criminal justice system.
You have a program for them there in the jail
We were
system.
the first in the United States, actually, thanks to my predecessor, Sheriff Mike Hennessy, in establishing what is known as the Cover Pod. And it is a specialized reentry pod for veterans. At the time it was established some years ago, it was focusing, of course, on Vietnam vets and the large population and the neglect, I think, by our society to that population. Now we're seeing that also exponentially occur with Iraq and Afghanistan vets as well. It's very specialized to deal with their needs, because what we want to do is help rehabilitate them so they're less likely to come back into the criminal justice system.
Very good. Well, we'll talk about that throughout the next couple of segments. Let's get this out of the way first. Talk about your leadership right now at the Sheriff's Office and what your transition has been like, and if there have been any questions within your rank and file about your leadership abilities given the legal issues of the past year.
Well, everybody is really the consummate professional. So it was nose to the grindstone when I was actively serving last year, as I could tell from my absence, and then in my return as sheriff, everybody just seamlessly just wants to get the job done. And I think that that is a real testament to the incredible excellence of the men and women of the San Francisco Sheriff's Department. There's about 1,100 members of our department. It's a sizable department of a budget of $171 million per year. So we command a lot of turf in the city and county of San Francisco. And I have to say, I'm very impressed by the initiatives we're putting forth, and everybody's all hands on deck and moving toward those advances. I've
been receiving some of your newsletters, and it looks like you have several programs in place to prevent recidivism. What we don't want is for inmates to reoffend.
Well, the interesting thing is that San Francisco in the past has been a little bit scoffed at for our kind of compassionate approach in criminal justice system, because in my predecessor believed there should be options for alternatives to incarceration. And people have to understand, taxpayers, that the pecking order of cost, it is the highest of the pecking order to incarcerate somebody. For us, it's about $50,000 to $55,000 a year. But if we can get a better bang for the buck, and in lieu of incarceration, that we can put somebody through a diversion and anti-recidivism program for a fraction of the cost and seeing better results, then that's what a sheriff should do. And even the more moderate to conservative counties who may have not been of that same mindset are now coming around, especially because of state prisoner realignment.
And are those programs working? Are you able to appease those on the conservative side, maybe, who don't want the rehab efforts, who want hard-term incarceration?
Well, believe it or not, even in San Francisco, it's not the question if you have conservative or not conservative, but you have skeptics. Because I think on behalf of those who are victims or who feel unsafe, they want to make sure that there is a very effective public safety and county jail system, and we have one. But the goal, of course, is to make sure that people don't return back into the jails, so that we give them the tools, compel them to have the tools, so that they are less likely to repeat their offenses. The state of California has failed miserably in the past on their repeat offender rates. 78% was the recidivism rate for the state of California, which was one of the reasons that motivated Governor Jerry Brown to really install AB 109, the State Prisoner Realignment Program, so that now counties are taking up a very sophisticated, more sophisticated criminal population, but are now putting on the hot seat to come up with proper anti-recidivism programs. So we do so for male, for female, for different cultures of that population, and we do so directed either at substance abuse, treatment on demand, but not by itself, because a great portion of that jail population have a substance abuse problem, about 65 to 70%. Housing, vocation, those are the other areas we really try to laser in on.
All right, it's the Office of the Sheriff in San Francisco County, and they're recruiting at times, so log on to that website and call that phone number for more information, Office of Sheriff Ross Mirkarimi. We'll be back and talk about a special program called the 5 Keys Charter School out of San Francisco. Stay with us. We're back with San Francisco Sheriff Ross Mirkarimi, and we're talking during the break about overcrowding and how that's not an issue for you.
San Francisco is unique. We're one of the few counties in the state of California that has undercrowding, and significantly so. Our jail capacity in total is a little more than 2,400, but our jail population statically for the last 15 months has been under 1,600. So it's a combination effect about the inroads we're making in public safety and crime from a first responder perspective to us pushing more assertively alternatives to incarceration programs. If somebody doesn't have to be incarcerated and we have an alternative to reroute them through a more effective reentry system, like through our behavioral courts or drug courts, so that they get the treatment they need and they follow through on their probation and less likely to repeat, we're finding great success.
Let me ask you, have you seen any negative impact of realignment at all? I would imagine not, because then you would probably face overcrowding, but has realignment impacted the jail system in any negative way?
Not in San Francisco, because San Francisco was a standout. We didn't always send that many to the state in the first place. So it's not the return of the population that's hitting us in droves, but it's those that we're not sending that begins to add in numbers.
I see.
So that does challenge us, because in some ways, those that would normally go to state prison are a little more sophisticated in their criminal behavior. So it requires a little more of a specialized approach for those who work outside and inside the jails. I'll tell you the one indicator I'm concerned about as sheriff, not on behalf of San Francisco or just the Bay Area, but on behalf of the state. I think that the county jails are actually becoming a replacement for mental health institutions. And I'm very worried about the indicators that even though we have a lower jail population, people who are suffering with acute mental health are starting to find themselves implicated in the criminal justice system because the state is not managing the population of people suffering with mental health needs, and we're going to have to rewire how we deal with a population that also requires a very specialized approach.
How close is the governor's ear to what you're saying now? Is he aware of that concern?
I think he is, because I think a number of sheriffs are knocking loudly on their door in a very collaborative way, but it's not something that anybody can ignore.
Very good. Well, tell me about the 5 Keys Charter School program, because it's very unique and it seems to be working.
And we're proud of it. It is the first in the United States of a jail system that has a high school. It's a charter high school embedded in the jail system. We have a high percentage of the inmates who are there for not just short period of time, but longer period of times, 90 days or more, essentially, and some even less, who participate in the 5 Keys curricula. The goal is, if they don't have a high school diploma, that they will work towards that. And we just now became GED certified, where it's a testing center inside too. And then, of course, is to give them skill, but the basic skills, literacy. And it's important to remember that even in an enlightened liberal city like San Francisco, we have pockets and communities that are very disadvantaged. And if we can do the kind of work that should have been done outside the jail system, but inside the jail system, that's exactly what we aim to do through the 5 Keys School.
Do you think that sometimes when there is a lack of literacy, maybe it's too early for you to tell, when there's a lack of literacy, that child or that person is more likely to offend because they don't have schooling?
It's not too early to tell at all. I think plenty of studies have affirmed that, because it's all the other, I think, benefits and or the consequences of not being able to cope and manage in one's own world to be able to advance yourself without, I think, some of those rudimentary skills. And so even though it's up to the person themselves to really self-initiate their own improvement, I want to make sure in our administration that we have all the proper, I think, assets in place to assist them. And that's exactly what we're doing.
I didn't ask you to prepare for any demographics, but speaking of demographics, if you can generally talk about what your jail system looks like.
Oh, I know this stuff by heart. And I don't think it's too uncommon in most of the counties, especially in urban centers in California, unlike more rural areas of others. But our jail population, as I said, is about 1,600 right now. The composition breaks down to about 55% African American, which is high, and it's even higher than the state average. The next is about 21% white Caucasian, then about 16% Latino, and then a random others, Asian, etc., or others. That's troubling because I think it also shows the inequities of those who can't afford bail, and a high percentage of the jail population is a pre-trial population. So because they can't afford bail and they can't get out, then really they have no other options. As sheriff, I have limited discretion that is empowered by state law to allow others out through, say, electronic monitoring or through a work furlough program. But it's a narrow window, and I think there should be some reforms in looking in that direction.
Do you find that maybe some might think, well, I don't want to leave the jail system because I'm going to get my high school diploma. I'm going to get my GED here.
Making too comfortable? Well, we don't have a frequent flyer card for those and benefits attached, but maybe I should consider it for, but no, kidding aside, well, maybe, I don't know. Nobody's ever admit that to me. I don't think they're coming for the food, that's for sure. And I think that that's a main staple.
Let me get your thoughts. You're fresh into the office. There's a chance to run for sheriff again. Are you going to run again?
In 2015, There's a great chance I'm going to run again. I set out as I was a supervisor for almost 2 terms, a leader in the issues of public safety, which is one of the reasons that I ran for sheriff and that my predecessor, Mike Hennessy, wanted me to succeed him as well too. And chomping at the bit at really advancing the kind of programs that keep San Francisco, I think, as an innovator in the criminal justice system, and we have a lot of work to do.
So for sheriff, not for higher office, if there's a higher office in the sheriff
Let's
of San
take this one day at a time.
He's the sheriff of San Francisco County, ladies and gentlemen. There is the web address for more information. You want to also have people log on so they can get your newsletters at home.
Yes, and a lot of people don't know what the sheriff's department does, and a lot of things beyond just managing sort of the jail system. So if they contact the sheriff's department, sfgov.org or sfsheriff.com, and just say you want to sign on to the newsletter, we're more than happy to put you. It's an electronic newsletter.
All right, and there's the web address for more information. Any final thoughts, sir, to the viewers in the 9 Bay Area counties?
Well, thank you for inviting me to your show. And I don't view this in the issues we talked about as a San Francisco issue. Really, these are Bay Area and regional issues. And I think while people talk about housing and jobs and employment, I'm surprised that there isn't more collaboration between the 9 Bay Area county sheriffs on questions of public safety. And I'm hoping that we do have those kind of sort of opportunities to come together and share, I think, our thinking, because Bay Area is very unique in our challenges. Just like population forecasts and everything else we have to prepare for, public safety is something else.
Maybe this is the birth for something like that right here.
That's why
the challenge has been issued. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you.
Good luck to you. My pleasure. Let me give you our Twitter handle in case you need to get a hold of us for some reason. Also, drop us an email. There's my email address, and my Twitter handle is @NewsDamien. Also, pick up a copy of El Observador newspaper and support your bilingual weeklies all across the Bay Area. We thank you for sharing a part of your Easter Sunday with us once again. We hope you're enjoying your Cesar Chavez holiday weekend as well. Buenas tardes.